Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial in DAZ 3D. In this one I'm going to be showing you a couple of methods of smoothing clothing, one using DFORCE and another one using the smoothing modifier. Before I get into that, a big thank you to all my supporters on whatever platform you choose to support me on. Now in front of us we have the Cindy model, and you can see that the clothing, the top on her, because of the way DAZ works, the clothing will conform to the body. And in this case you end up with it sticking underneath the breasts like this. And if you were to render that scene, it doesn't look very realistic at all. So there are a couple of ways we can fix this. The first and possibly the quickest, we select the top and then go to General under the parameter setting, and where it says Mesh Smoothing, see we've got smoothing iterations and currently it's set at 2. You just grab that, yank it all the way up, 155 will be fine. And once the computer has a think, you'll see that it will smooth out the top, and it's done a pretty good job. There's a bit of clipping at the back there, but that doesn't look too bad. Let's have a look at it rendered. Looks perfectly fine. Now there was a bit of clipping at the back there, but that's not too bad. That's easy enough to sort out with some adjustments. Under here, we look for back lower, I'm guessing, yeah. And you can just pull that out a bit. And there you go, see that's fine. So that looks okay. So that's the quickest and easiest method of doing this. However, it does come with some drawbacks. Chiefly among them is the fact that it's very computer intensive. It will use your CPU to calculate the smoothing iterations, and in this case 155. You may get away with less if we knock this down to 89. See, it's not quite as good. There's definitely some deformation in the middle there. Now with each character and scene you bring on, there will be further iterations that will need to run. So for example, if you have a scene with 3 or more people in it, suddenly your computer's going to start chugging as it has to load those smoothing iterations for this character and any other characters that you have. On top of that is the texture memory of the scene itself. So for single images like this, smoothing iterations you can get away with. But for larger, more detailed scenes, there's another method which I've actually shown previously, but I'll show again here, and that is using DFORCE and the animation timeline to give the same effect. So let's reset this all back to normal. Okay, so everything's set back to the way it was. You click on the timeline at the bottom here, that will bring up your animation timeline. I've got it set to 30, so it's 30 frames. And the first thing you want to do, click and go to the end frame, which is frame 30, and then you make sure that this is selected on object, and you click this plus key, making sure that you've got the model selected. So in this case Cindy selected. I'll click the plus key, it will have a think, and what it will do, it will create a keyframe here. You see it's created that. Now if I move this up, see that it's created a keyframe for Cindy right there. Now if we go back to the beginning, and if we were to play this, see there won't be any difference because we've just copied the original frame to the end frame. This is also a good way of how you can loop animations. So let's minimize that back down for now. What we're going to do is we're actually going to decrease the size of her breasts. To do this, you select the model, go to shaping, chest, and if we type in here size, you can see we've got a few options. The ones I'm going to use is the left and the right size. Drop them down. Now I happen to know on this particular top it needs to be squished a bit more. So we've actually got this one here which will flatten them further, something like that. And And now we've got that set on frame 1. So on frame 30, you can see they're set as the correct size. Back to frame 1. Go to our simulation tab. We want to simulate animated, use timeline to play range. We don't need to start Bones for memorized pose as she's already in the A pose anyway. Before we do any DFORCE simulation, let's turn off the hair. It hasn't got to worry about that collision. Click simulate. And you'll see that initially it will drop down. And as the animation plays, it will stretch the breasts out. And you can see it's nice and smooth. A little bit of clipping at the back there, but again, that's easily fixed. Let's put her hair back in. You can see, looks perfectly fine. There's no bunching in the middle, and it looks stretched, and there's a couple little stretch lines there which would be normal for the top. So in my opinion, it's a bit more of a realistic look. Why would you use this over the previous version? With this one, as long as you render your scene on scene 30, this wouldn't take up as much CPU time as you would get with the smoothing iterations of the previous version. And that's all I've got for this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you can, please give a like and consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.